one more point. I have a very good friend, former student, Jack Chin. He teaches at UC Davis. And he sent me an email, and he said, you know, there's one problem with your argument. And since there's a problem with the argument, I got to tell you what it is. Because, you know, in law, arguments, no argument is ever foolproof. The arguments just keep going. That's just the way law is, you know? He said, look, there's something really funny, weird about the statute that was in place when Cruz was born. It had a sort of condition subsequent to it. That is, you had to, your mother had to have residence for a certain amount of time, and in fact she did. But you, sometime between the ages of 14 and 28, had to live in the United States continuously for a period of 5 years. What that meant is that you couldn't, like, every year go off to some other place and then come back. You had to actually be rooted in the United States for 5 years, sometime during this period between 14 and 28. Now, as far as I know, Ted Cruz did that. Now, if any of you want to dig up how many vacations did he take in France, go ahead, be my guest. But my understanding is that he met that. And Jack made this really interesting point, and it's really important. So it's against my argument. That's why I have to tell you about it. And he said, look, you could lose your citizenship if you didn't establish 5 years of continuous residency in the US between the ages of 14 and 28. Now, how can you be a natural-born citizen if at some point in the future you could lose your citizenship? So he says you should only regard such a person as a provisional citizen, not a natural-born citizen. And therefore, Cruz loses. That's what Jack said to me. And I thought about it for a while, and it seems like a very powerful argument. But as you know, in law, there's always a counter-argument, right? So this is my counter-argument, and this is what I leave you with. The question of whether you're a natural-born citizen is the question of whether or not you become a citizen automatically at birth. You could be a natural-born citizen and still lose your citizenship. Now, usually the way you lose your citizenship is to renounce it, right? It's very rare in American constitutional law. Actually, Larry knows more about this than I do, because he's written about it, that there are a set of cases in which Congress tries to make people lose their citizenship, and the Supreme Court generally doesn't like to allow people to lose their citizenship unless they affirmatively and positively say, I don't want to be a citizen anymore, right? So this would be an exception to the general principle of constitutional law, which is that we try very hard not to have people accidentally lose their citizenship. But there are examples. So when you think about the case of women, for many, many years in the United States, if you were a natural-born citizen in the United States and you married a foreigner and went to live across the seas with that foreigner, you lost your citizenship upon marriage. And that was the rule for a very long period of time. So it's not crazy that Congress could, in fact, snatch citizenship back. But that doesn't mean that the people who were born in the United States, women born in the United States who married people from other countries, were not natural-born citizens. It doesn't affect their natural-born citizenship at all. And in the same way, I don't think the fact that Cruz had to show up and live for 5 years at some point between 14 and 28 means that he wasn't a natural-born citizen at the time he was born. He was. But Congress said, and we want something else from you, or else you'll lose your citizenship. That may be a bad idea as a matter of policy. And in fact, it's also plausible, although we don't have time to talk about it, that there might be a constitutional problem with snatching back citizenship once granted in these contexts. But I don't think it touches the question of whether he's natural-born. Thank you very much.